Hello everybody and welcome. In this video, we're going to take a look at some updates that Google has put out there for both table referencing, and the biggest thing to me is the addition of the footer, or totals as it is called. Now, there are some changes on how you're able to highlight and select data, and so I'm going to go through that and then kind of show the example, how to get the footer, and go from there. Now, I did try this with both my workspace account as well as my personal account, and both seem to be working with this. Again, your account might not have it yet, but I believe it should be based off of that. But again, I could be off, or it could be, in America or certain regions they do have it and don't. So, try it out, see. Otherwise, be excited. It'll be coming out shortly. In Google's article, it has this. There are some changes in the improved table referencing. And I'll go into that with more details on kind of how I have it, but this is the big part right here. Table footers is this hashtag, #, number sign, whatever you call it, totals. And that allows you to pull the totals. Now, strangely enough, in this article, there isn't actually an example to show it. So it was a little bit odd, but I was able to get it done, and there might be a little more like a UI or user interface that is a little easier than what I'm doing in this video, but we'll see. Now, before I get into a spreadsheet and get started, I wanted to show kind of the structure as in that, as well as here. And I tried to color code it. It made sense to me. Sorry if it doesn't to you, but in any case, the biggest thing is first, you need to have that table. Second, there's the select data, which would be the rows. For example, if you want just the header row, you would say hashtag header. If you want all of it, headers, rows, data, totals, you do the hashtag all. The other one is data, which wouldn't have the header and it wouldn't have the totals, just the data. Makes sense. And then finally, the totals, if you just want the totals. Next is the range or columns that you want. So again, you would specify after the comma, column 1, if that's the name of the column. And then if you want a range like column 1 through 3, you could do column 1, column 3. And then you'd end in those brackets that, again, starts the table and then ends the table. If we were using this here, this would be what I would use in order to pull that column of data. Now, again, I have it in arrays, and that allows you to either add more rows or more columns, depending on the comma or the semicolon. But again, that's just to make it an array, versus if you just did this without those brackets, you would just get the top, which in this case would be the header if you select header. In this, it's the table row, the row data, again, which ones you want. So header, all, data, total, and then the column name. If you want to pick multiple columns, but they're not all in numerical order, so let's say 1 through 3 and then 7, what you would have to do is you would need to have this array. You would say column name, make sure whatever rows you're picking have the identical amount of data. So both of them have to be all, both of them have to be header, they just have to match. Then the first one will be column 1 through 3, then separated by that comma, that's going to actually activate with this, and I probably should have put it white instead to match it, but that's okay. Just pretend I did. And then this will be the next range in this array, which would then, again, be column 7. So hopefully that kind of makes sense and helps. I think the biggest part is this table right here that I made. To me, makes sense. It's a little bit more to, kind of jump through or jump between data, but let's get in a spreadsheet and test this out. This is the first there. Let's say that I want to pull some of the data. So I'm going to do equal, and I showed you all the different things that you could do to type it out. Again, if you just highlight it, you can see that it highlights this here. Then if I hold shift and select here, it's selecting both of these, and it's showing the all, category through budget. Again, I showed like column 1 through 2, but it's there. Again, if I just switch here, all that changes is the cost, and then the budget will be included. Let me just show that by completing this with an array. Hit enter, and then here we go. We have this here. It added some data, and strangely enough, it just adds a bunch. I don't know why it's 500, but that's what it's doing. I'm gonna just shorten it to I don't even want that many. I'm just gonna go to, let's say, 20, and then delete the rest here. Anyway, we can see that we have that there. Now, again, if we want to add these, and let's say, well, maybe I should have added one. Let's just add another column here. And then I want the transaction date, but I don't really care about this column, column 7. What I can do is here I put a comma, which again in this array is now moving to another one. And then I can just do this here, which is then all transaction date. So it's again pulling category, budget, cost, skipping a column, and then this one. I hit enter, and then let's move over, and now I have transaction date as well. So that's pretty much how that works. Now, let's say in this one, we want to just show the headers of these. You can switch this into headers, but you have to make sure that it actually matches, because otherwise you're going to have this array row mismatch size, because this is going to pull 1, whereas this one's pulling 20. So like I kind of said in that, and I'll just break this up so it's a little bit easier, make sure that those match. So I'm just going to highlight that, paste it in here, push enter, and oops, that's just because I had my cursor there. Here I just have the headers now. To move on, I want to show the footers, and this is where it would be nice if it was easier. Again, I think there's probably going to be there's probably going to be a UI change or user interface change, because right now it's a little bit hard, but what I found to be able to do this is you need to have a range that is not in the table. So here, I'm just going to remove some of these end rows here, and I'm just doing all of those to keep it. So I'm going to just change this table range to 15. Then what I'm going to do is here, I have to sum and actually specify the event budgets. So here, I'm going to push tab, and then it adds that footer. So now I have a footer for this sum here. Now, one thing I noticed, if you pull this over, it's going to actually continue to do the budget. So you'll have to actually change that to cost if you want the cost. Similarly, too, if let's say at the end you want to see like the total amount, it would be the budget like versus the cost. You know, you could add that here and go equal this minus that. So the actual budget of what you have versus the cost. And you can see that you have this much total left over. So again, it's up to you how you're doing it, but basically this is going to be the footer of those. Now, I have this set as column 7. Maybe I'll just call this like extra just to be able to reference it. But let's take a look at this now and see what happens if we switch this to the totals. So I'm just going to copy this over, paste it in, and now switch from headers to totals. And then I did the bracket. Once when it turns that color and it all changes, that says that it actually knows what's happening with it. So let's do that and then put it here and push enter. And you can see here that in that range, category, budget, cost, then transaction date, there's nothing there. This one has that information and this one does too, and then this one's blank. If you try to mess with this here, it is an array, and you'll get a ref error because even though it's blank, it is still pulling that data there. So again, has that there. Alternatively too, if you wanted to, you could actually kind of combine these, and again, it's up to you and your spot, but let's say that you want to have the headers and then you want to have both the totals after it. So what you can do is you can take this, copy it. I'm just going to take this for ease and copy what's inside of this, and we're going to make the array with it. So I'm going to just paste that first bit from my clipboard, then I'm going to do a semicolon, and then I'm going to paste that second part here, the totals. Hit enter, and now you can see that all of this is in there. What's happening is that this is essentially going to be the first kind of columns, and then it's going to add this. Then it's going to do essentially like a page break in this, or rather make a new row, and in that new row show this and this. And that works here because we are selecting all of the data and the rows are all equal. If I try to do header in one place and then switch this one here to have it be, like data, that's not going to work. But this is just going to pull one row, I'm going to make a page break, 1 row, 1 row. So again, that might be a little bit excessive for what you want to do, but I wanted to at least show that. Now, let's try this again and use basically just the everything in D. So if I do this, it's all the cost. I hit enter, and I forgot to put it in brackets. There we go. So cost, and it goes all the way down to the footer total. Now, if I switch it from instead of all just to data, hit enter, you can see now that it just is pulling the data portion, excluding both the header and the footer. Well, that's pretty much all that I'm going to cover. I know that was kind of a lot of information and kind of looking at the arrays a little bit more and how to use it there, but I think this is a good addition. Now, again, I think it would be helpful if in here you could actually specify, like insert row below, like right-click it or do something in order to, say, add a footer or something like that. But again, this kind of makes sense on when you go underneath it. If it's not structured, it kind of adds that footer there knowing that you're wanting to do that. Now, I didn't try this. Let's go ahead and do like a sum of this again. Let's see what happens. It doesn't structure it. Well, I guess it's no, it is the data. Oh, and shows the totals. Let's not do the totals. There we go. Nope. So it seems like it just does it once. You can't really have multiple. If I insert a row below, yeah, it's still structured there. So, sorry, this is me just messing around now. But in any case, hopefully you find this helpful. Hopefully you're excited for it. And, in the comments, if you have any suggestions, like what would you hope this has more of or less of, maybe, adding the same thing on the sides here. Now, it would kind of break what was going on, as I was mentioning with the rows, but it would kind of be nice to see, like, what was the total here of, like, the budget versus cost? Like, how much over did I go or under, and how much did I save? Something like that to be able to add not only a footer of data to summarize it, but also to have those rows for each of those records to be able to, add that too. Again, that might be something that comes out. It would just sort of break the structure that at least I kind of put out there and what it seems to be. But again, I think it would be doable for them. It would just look a little different. But anyway, hopefully you found this video helpful. And, if you have any different suggestions or hopes that you want to change to, you can leave them in the comments. And of course, you can also go here and send feedback. I've seen a lot of the changes of what people have requested. And like the footers here got added. So they are actively either listening or just know what we're wanting. So again, leave them in the comments, send some feedback, do those social things like share, subscribe. Appreciate it too. And we'll see you in the next video. Bye now.